Here we go. Here we are in this Excel workbook, and like the name suggests, an attendance tracker. So it tracks the attendance of certain students in a school. So over here, all the lecturer or all the teacher needs to do is to simply call out the name of the students. Then if present, indicate a P to show the student was present, and if absent, an A to indicate the student was absent. And also, in the case that there is a day all the students weren't present because it was a holiday, all he needs to do is to use an H to indicate these ones. And the final result or the final output is displayed over here in the student attendance records to let the teacher know the number of times a student was present, the number of times absent, the number of holidays, and also the percentage present for him to make a decision about the students who are mostly absent in his or her class. So this is what we'll be doing today to create this whole thing from scratch. And so to do that, let's open a new worksheet over here. So let's first select this cell over here and bring in the student name. So simply bring in the equal sign and come to the attendance mark. Then select the student name, hit the enter, and the student name will appear over here. Then we will simply drag it down to the very end of it. And obviously we can drag it down to any number or any cell we want to make more room for in case in the middle of the term or semester a new student appears. So let's continue. Let's simply adjust this column over here and let's get rid of these zeros over here since we'll just be using these names for this tracker today. So let's bring in the days over here just like we've done over here, the days over here. Let's bring in the days, and now we'll introduce this work days over here also, and now this test to indicate the name of the days we are talking about. So let's type in the days. So days, and now let's hit the enter key. And over here also, since a Saturday and a Sunday isn't included in our school days, we would have to get rid of them. Then over here, we'll introduce the workdays function to cater for that. So we'll do that by simply selecting this cell, come to the formula bar and bringing the equal sign. We'll type in the workday function over here. So workday, and it has appeared over here. So we'll simply hit the tab key with this selected. Then we'll introduce the date function for the start of the date. So the date function, let's correct that, the date function for the start of the day. So obviously we are in 2025, so the year will be 2025. The month, June is almost over. So now we begin with July. So let's introduce the month of July. And the day we want is for them to start on the 2nd. So let's simply type in the 1st of July, since the 1st of July over here is a Republic Day. So we'll simply close this parenthesis. And the next thing is asking us for is the days. And for here, we'll introduce the sequence function so that we can make more room for many days as possible. So we'll simply hit the enter with the sequence function. And since our data will be moving in a horizontal way, our row will obviously be only one row. And the number of columns will be from the start of the semester to the very end of it. So let's give ourselves a rough estimate of, say, 35 columns. So we need 35 columns. So let's simply type in the 35 columns and simply close this parenthesis, then close it again and simply hit enter. And now this will be created for us. But if you are to carefully look at it, this is not a date format, is it? So to correct that, let's simply select this entire data, right? Let's select it. Then now let's move to the number group over here under the home tab. So let's simply click on this launch button over here and come to the custom. And what we want is a custom form. So we'll simply select this date type over here and simply click on OK. But before that, I want us to make it a double D. So the D should be 2 over here. Sorry, let's make it in a small caps. So we'll simply get rid of this M also. So a double D and a double M. And this is the sample that was given to you for you to know how your date will appear now. So we'll simply hit on the OK. And if you have to carefully look at it now, our date has appeared in this format also. And the next thing we would like to do, like this one where the date is in a vertical form, we would like to do same for here also. So to do that, with this selected, let's come to the alignment group, and over here in the orientations tab, we'll simply click on this drop down button And let's rotate our test up. So simply select that one. And if you have to carefully look at it, our test has been rotated up like we wanted. So now the next thing we will do is let's simply adjust this column width over here. So let's select our entire column up to this point. Then let's simply adjust it a bit. So let's simply adjust it. Okay. So now we've adjusted that, and let's align our text to the middle. So let's simply align it to the middle. And the next thing we'll do now is to introduce these ones over here. So let's introduce this Monday, Tuesday test over here. So to do that, we introduce what we call the test function. So just below it, right next to the student name cell, we'll simply bring the equal sign, then introduce the test function over here. So with the test function, it is asking us for the value. So this is the value we are talking about. So we'll simply introduce our comma and the format test. So the type of test we want it to appear. So over here, we'll introduce the day. So we'll hit the D button 3 times. So for date, so simply do that and close the parenthesis and hit on the enter key. And if you have to carefully look at it, it has appeared over here. But then again, if you have to carefully look at this attendance mark, this is how it appears and not in this format. So to take care of that, let's introduce what we call the left function also. So the left function will trim our data for us a bit. So we'll simply hit the tab key. So now it is asking for the test. This is our test. And how do you want to trim it? So we want to trim it from the left. We want only one test from the left to appear. So we'll simply select or choose one, close the parenthesis and hit on enter. And voila, it has appeared for us. So let's simply drag it to the very end of it. So we'll simply do that. Let's simply do that. Okay. And the next thing we'll do now is to also introduce the weeks also. So this is obviously week one, right? So this is obviously week one. So let's now merge and center for all the weeks. So to do that, let me quickly do one for you. So I've selected from Wednesday to Friday sums up 1 week. So we'll simply merge it. Then also Monday to Friday is 1 week. So I'll simply do that and get back. Okay, so now I've made all this thing up, and for your heads up, I changed the 33 to 35 so that at least our term will end on a Friday. And so you can also do same. Okay, so now let's now introduce our week. So we'll simply hit the one key and press on the enter. And over here also, if you have to carefully look here or come over here, weeks appear in the week one, week two, WK1, WK2. We have to do same for this one also. And so to do that, with it selected, we'll come to the number group again and hit on the launch button, then come to the custom and simply click on 0 over here. Then over here in front of, we'll bring our button in front of the 0 and introduce the WK for the week. So if you have to carefully look at the sample over here, it appears week one. So we'll simply hit on OK. Then now we'll come to the next cell that we've merged also and simply bring in the equal sign. Then select this one and bring the plus sign and add one. So week two appears over here. And let's do same for this. So we'll simply bring in the equal sign, select this, then bring the plus sign and hit on the enter. Week three appears for us. So let's simply drag it to see what will be done. Okay, so now if you have to carefully look at it, our weeks have now been appeared. We have 7 weeks in our semester. That's a very short semester. So let's simply select our entire test over here. Then let's make some few edits to it. So I'll simply do that. Okay, so now we've done almost all this. We are almost entirely done with everything over here. So let's go back to our attendance mark. If you have to carefully look at this format over here, let's do same for our attendance also. So to do that, let's simply select our entire data over here. Then let's go to the font group. Let's change the background. So let's simply select the black and let's change the font color also to this color. Then we can bolden it up. Then let's change this style over here. Let's bring it to the middle, center it. Okay, and let's do same for our week over here also, or our weekdays over here also. Let's change the background. Now let's change the font color also. Okay, and let's do same for this also. Let's quickly do that. Okay, so now we are done. So now the next thing on the list is to introduce these ones over here also, where we have a drop down list where we can simply type in the P for us to indicate the present. And if you have to come to the data group, all these things have been made available. So present P and its index is 1, absent A, its index is 0. So to do that over here, we'll introduce the data validation. So let's select our entire cells over here. And like I say always, you can always make more room. You can always select as many cells you want to make more room for, obviously, in case a new student joins during the course of the semester. So let's select this. And now let's introduce the data validation. So we'll simply select on the, or we'll simply click on the data tab over here, then come to the data tools. And if you have to see over here, the data validation, so let's simply select data validation. And what we want is a list. So we'll simply click on this drop down button over here and simply select the list. Then our source, so our source is over here under the data sheet. So this is our source. We want only this to appear. So this is our source, and we'll simply hit on enter. So now if you have to carefully select any cell, this drop down button appears for you to now select any of these tests over here. So now we've done that. Let's make some few editing over here. Let's give it a bit of a background. So let's go to the home tab and let's give it a bit of a background. And now let's give it some borders also. So let's give it some borders. All right. So now we've done that. So if you have to carefully select them, this is how they will appear. Now let's simply type a P to see. Okay, the P appears, the A appears. Okay, let's see an H also, it appears. Over here, if you have to introduce all these tests, no, there is no color change over here, unlike this attendance mark over here, where if you have to type in a P and click or hit the enter key, the P, as soon as the P appears, the background color of green also appears over here. So now, how do we change that, or how do we introduce that? So to introduce that, we bring in what we call the conditional formatting. So let's select our entire cells in which this data validation has been applied to, and let's introduce our conditional formatting. So under the styles group, you'll find the conditional formatting. So we'll simply click on it. And over here, we want to introduce a new rule. So we'll simply click on a new rule from this drop down button over here. And this pop-up menu will appear, and over here we'll use a formula to determine which cells to format. So we'll simply click on that, and this dialog box will appear where you can apply or introduce your argument. So what do we want? So we want to introduce the equal sign. So in the equal sign, what we want to do is to select this cell after introducing the equal sign. And since our data will be moving around, we don't want to be locking ourselves or our column and rows. So we'll simply unlock both the column and the row. Then what do we want to say? So if cell C5 is equal to, right, is equal to the text P, if it's equal to the text P, then we want to give it a format color of green. So we'll simply click on the OK. Then now let's go and test our theory and simply click on OK. So now, if you have to carefully look at it now, the background color has been given to it. Let's select any cell and simply hit on the P to see. Okay, so now this is also working. So now let's also do same for the absent also. So let's simply select our entire cells also, go to the conditional formatting again, the new rule. Then let's use a formula to determine. Now let's bring in the equal sign again, select this very cell again. Then also let's get rid of these dollar signs and bring in the equal sign. So over here, if our first is equal to A, if our test or if our cell is equal to an A, the format color we want to give it is a red color to introduce or to indicate danger, the person didn't come. So simply click on it. Okay, okay. All right. So as you can see over here, it is working. Let's select any cell and simply hit on the enter key. All right, it's working over here also. Let's get rid of this all. So now we'll do it for the last one, which is the H, and voila, it has now been applied to each and every of these conditions for P, for A, and for H. So let's simply select any cell at random and apply this format to. All right, they are all working as we want. So now we've done this for this very school now. So the next thing we'll do now is to now introduce a tracker for these ones also. So just like this, we'll do same for this one also. So to do that, let's come to the records and simply introduce the equal sign again. So let's introduce the equal sign, come to this over here, simply select the student name and hit the enter. Then now we'll simply drag it down again. Let's get rid of this and let's get rid of this also. Then over here also, let's drag it to this point to copy the text we have introduced. So let's make some few edits over here. So now we've introduced this text over here. We have applied the format also to it, but we want ours to be a little bit different. So let's get rid of the number of holidays. Since the number of holidays will be a constant, we'll introduce it for just, or we'll introduce it in just one cell. So let's get rid of this over here. So the control minus, and also let's get rid of the total school days also. So we'll simply select the cell or the column and simply get rid of it also. So now let's now introduce a new row, or let's introduce two new rows. And what we want to bring over here is the number of holidays and the number or the total school days. So to do that, let's simply or quickly type it. So now with the number of times present, we know it's a P. With the number of times absent, we know it's an A. And the number of holidays, we know it's represented by an H. So what we'll introduce over here will be the countif function to be counting these ones for us. So what we'll do is to simply select under the number of times present, we'll select the very first cell and come over here to the formula bar and introduce the equal sign and also the countif function. So let's introduce the countif function, hit the tab key. So what is the range we are talking about? So we'll come to the attendance, then we will simply select this very range over here. And what is the criteria we are talking about? So the criteria we are talking about will be for the P. So we'll simply, if it is P, you count it. So we'll simply introduce it and simply press the enter key. So if you have to carefully look at it, it is 1, since over here, if you have to check the attendance, it is a 1 over here. So now let's drag it down for it to be applied to all this. And since it will be moving up and down, there is no need to lock our very range over here. So that's why I didn't lock it. So if you have to carefully look at it as it goes down, the very range changes to accommodate the cell we are talking about. And the number of times absent, we can copy this very formula over here, or yes, we can copy this very formula. Let's copy it and let's introduce it over here. So let's hit there. So with this formula copied over here, all we need to do is to simply change this text over here to an A, since an absent is represented by an A. So we'll simply select it and let's drag it down. So we'll simply drag it down to C. Okay, so now we can test our theory over here. So let's simply make some little simulation over here. So let's simply introduce the pluses and the absents over here. So let's simply do that. Let's do same for here also. So let's simply do same for here also. Okay. So we've done that. Now let's go and check for the records. So if you have to see over here, it's applied carefully over here also. So the number of holidays also over here. Let's simply copy this same formula over here. Let's copy it. So simply copy the formula. Then let's introduce it over here. Let's paste it over here. And now let's change this to simply an H over here. And since the number of holidays will be same for all of the students, we can always use only one over here for it. So for the total number of school days, what we need to do is to introduce the counter function to count the number of school days, then subtract it from the number of holidays to give us the actual number of school days. And so to do that, let's select the cell over here, then bring in the equal sign, then introduce the counter function. So simply introduce the counter function over here. You can always use the sum function also. So let's select the counter function. Then let's go to the attendance and simply select this entire data over here, or we can also select these dates over here also. So with it selected, let's simply close the parenthesis and simply bring in the minus sign and come to the records again and subtract the number of holidays from it. And currently the number of school days is 2. So this is what we are talking about. So as the days progresses, it increases. So now let's test the theory again. So from Monday to, so Friday, let's introduce Friday into the picture. So present throughout. They were all present on the Friday since it's the last day of the week. So they were all present. So currently the total number of school days is 3. So now we've done that. And to calculate for the percentage present is obviously the number of times present divided by the actual number of school days. And so we'll simply select this very cell over here and bring in the equal sign. Then we'll select this very cell and bring in the division sign and divide it by the total number of the actual total number of school days. Then since it's a constant, we'll introduce the dollar sign. So we'll use the F4 key to do that, to lock both column and row. Simply hit on the enter key. And since it's a percentage we are talking about, we can simply do that. So we can simply select this. But for now, let's drag it down to apply it for all of the students. And let's use the percentage symbol over here. So let's do that. And now let's make it a double decimal point. So now we've done that. If you have to carefully look at it, some students are 100% through it out, some 33%. That means they've been present only once out of the 3 school days. So now we are done with this attendance tracker. So now let's apply some few formats to it. So over here under the percentage present, we want to introduce a conditional formatting so that any student who doesn't meet the threshold, the lecturer or the teacher will be able to know in order to deal with them with the necessary measures or the necessary punishment. So to do that, with it selected, we'll move to the conditional formatting. Then we'll come to new rule over here and use a formula to determine it. So over here, we'll introduce the equal sign and we'll select the very first cell. And since we want the column to remain a constant whilst the row varies, we'll lock only the column. So we'll hit the F4 key twice to lock only the column. Then let's bring in the equal sign. No, over here, what we want to introduce, if it's greater than or equal to the 75%, right? If it's greater than or equal to the 75%, we want to apply a format to it. First, we want to give it a fill color of, let's say, a green. Then we want to give it a font color also. So the font color, we want it to be a white also. So we'll simply hit on OK, then hit on OK. Let's see what appears. So if you have to carefully look through, our formatting has been applied to this also. And still with this selected also, let's introduce the conditional formatting again. Let's go to a new rule and let's use a formula to determine it. And over here is equal to, if this very selected cell again, and let's lock only the column, is over here if it's only less than the 75%, right? If it's less than the 75%, let's apply a format of, let's say, let's make the font color also over here white, and also let's give it a fill color of the deep red, and also let's simply click on OK to see. And voila, conditional formatting has been applied to both of these conditions. So if the person isn't attending class very often, then he or she is in a red zone for the lecturer or the teacher to take the necessary measures. So now we are done with this attendance tracker. So let's make some few edits and we'll be out of here. Okay, so now we are finally done with the attendance tracker.